Good afternoon, everybody. Eileen Hanrahan here, your Cornell Cooperative Extension Community Energy Advisor, bringing you an energy chat today with Diane Stefani. This is Cornell Cooperative Extension programming, providing services and access to food, family services, 4-H, and energy efficiency. So check out your local Cornell Cooperative Extension to volunteer, to learn, and to grow. Thank you so much for joining us today, Diane Stefani with the Climate Reality Project. We're very excited to hear about all of the new and exciting information you have regarding climate reality and what we can do, what actions we can take to help stem climate change and so forth and improve our energy efficiency. So who are you? Tell me about yourself, Diane.
So first, good afternoon, Eileen. Thank you. It's great to be here. So yes, Diane Stefani. I am a proud New York resident. I was raised in New York State and have spent most of my life here. However, I have been out of the area for about 5 or 6 years, and I just returned at the end of last year to my home here in Broome County. I'm retired. I had a 35-year career as a business and human resources leader. And I am now working for Climate Reality Project as a volunteer. I have a wonderful husband and 2 wonderful children who are adults and out of the house. So consequently, of course, we have a couple dogs to keep us occupied.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you. So how did you get involved in climate activism?
So my husband and I, Eileen, are both outdoor enthusiasts. So we really like to run and bike and hike. We do a lot of walking. And when I got back to upstate New York at the end of last year, I noticed that there was just a tremendous amount of litter, what we would have called litter in the 70s, along the side of the roads, but far worse than what I ever remember back then. It was numerous, it was large. There was, I remember specifically there was a television set sitting in the drainage ditch in one place. It just shocked and surprised me and kind of motivated me to start really trying to assess where we were from an environmental standpoint. So I started doing a lot of reading and getting involved with different groups and trying to learn as much as I could. And as I did that, what I found was that every road either kind of led to or from climate change. So everything that I was encountering that was a challenge was either caused by climate change or was a cause of climate change. And so I started asking people, friends and family, what do you think about climate change? What do you think about global warming? And I got a host of different answers because there's a spectrum of answers to that question, right? But some of the questions that were affirmative, hey, I believe in it, they just really chilled me because they sounded like they were without hope. And that really motivated me and has kind of prodded me on with the Climate Reality Project.
Excellent. So thank you so much for taking on that baton and helping to move forward with stemming climate change and so forth. And so what is the Climate Reality Project?
Yeah, so the Climate Reality Project is a nonprofit organization that's really focused on advocacy around climate change. Its founder was former Vice President Al Gore, and if you've seen either of his movies, An Inconvenient Truth or An Inconvenient Sequel, you'll be familiar with the type of work that we do. It's truly a large and growing organization. They have over 20,000 trained climate reality leaders. I am one of them. They just trained up several thousand the beginning of this year and are now training another several thousand in the second half of the year here. Climate Reality Project is in 150 countries. We actually have 130 branches here, chapters, they call them, here in the United States. And in fact, we're starting a new chapter, which will encompass the Finger Lakes region, and it's a very broad region. So it'll include Rochester, Syracuse, Binghamton, Owego, kind of that whole central swath of upstate New York. So if anybody's interested in joining, my contact information is on the last slide of the presentation I'm going to show in a few minutes, and you can contact me.
And then so now you've taken the coursework through Climate Reality Project, and you're now officially a Climate Reality Project volunteer leader. And so just give me a recap on that. I know we already discussed it, but I just want to get a quick recap on that and what that means for our community.
So Climate Reality Project is a nonprofit organization interested in education and advocacy, and they're really very grassroots oriented. And one of the things that I really liked about Climate Reality is they allow you to bring kind of who you are to what they're doing. And so they have many resources you can take advantage of, but you're really encouraged to design your own messaging within the larger message. And I liked that. I'm a person who spent a lot of time working with groups, doing a lot of facilitation with groups in organizations that I worked for. And I really like to encourage dialogue. I don't do this all that much. I like to, we're having a dialogue, yes, but we're broadcasting it to people who really can't talk to us. And I really like to be in the room with people, even if it's the virtual room, and trying to facilitate a dialogue. And especially if you get people with dramatically different opinions, which you have on this topic, that's always the best way to cover it.
Right. That's a great way to open it up and start and have that conversation. Yeah. So what are some of the things you've learned in this line of work?
So I think, whenever you embark on something that's relatively new for you, even if you've got a lot of elements in your background that kind of lend themselves to it, you always have some revelations. And one of the first revelations I had in this space was I thought that I needed to learn a tremendous amount about climate, which I do, and weather. And so I started studying things like ecosystems and, sinks and all the things that I heard being talked about, right, or I read about. And it was somewhere in the middle of all that I really had this epiphany, a personal epiphany that said, this is about as much about energy as it is about climate. And so then I started reaching out to people like yourself, Eileen, and others who I knew were active in the energy space and trying to learn from them. And that has turned out to be very much the case the further I've gotten into this. It's kind of equal amounts understanding what's going on with the climate and understanding how we power all that we do from a society standpoint.
Yes, the two are very interconnected. So it's wonderful that you've learned and made that connection and that you're able to communicate that to the larger community, and we appreciate that. And that said, you have an excellent presentation. Can you provide us with some additional education?
I hope I have an excellent presentation. I have a presentation and I'll leave it to others to assess the quality of it. I will just say that one of the other revelations I had, which I found somewhat disheartening, was as I got into this, I found out, and I did not know this, but I have an excuse, I was living somewhere else, right? That New York State had this sweeping climate legislation, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. And when I heard about it, I started talking to people about it, and I found most everybody didn't know anything about it. And I thought that was too bad, and also a place where I might be able to be helpful. And even within the climate space, I found that people knew that it had happened, but really didn't know the particulars. So frankly, I started there in giving a couple pitches, myself and a partner, and then I kind of went off on my own. So with that, I'm going to show you what is now a little bit more robust pitch that I'm giving personally. And I've given this several times now. And so I'm going to show that to you. And okay. I'm realizing that won't happen magically. I need to share my screen.
Right.
Okay, can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, so the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act is really New York State's step forward into reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the state. This legislation was signed into law on July 18th of last year, and it became effective at the beginning of this year. And at the most macro level, there is a dual focus here. First, climate leadership. In the body of the law, the authors talk about the fact that they believe that New York State has taken a leadership role in the environmental movement for decades, really from the beginning in the late 60s and early 70s. And they want to continue that leadership. And they believe that if they are, and they are, one of the first states to implement this kind of legislation, that others will follow. And so they really want to pave the way and be seen as helping others to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions as well. Equally as important, there is a protection element in this law, and the target of it is truly protecting our communities and our citizens, especially disadvantaged communities, from the effects of climate change. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, and especially how it's targeted toward disadvantaged communities as we go through the pitch. All right, so I'd like to start with, so why did we do this? Why did New York State do this? And rather than me trying to assess why they did it, I thought since there is such a robust case for change that's written right into the law, that I would really just show you some excerpts of it and let them speak for themselves. So in the top right-hand box is the opening statement of this legislation. And I'll just let you read that quickly.
Would agree with that.
Yeah, so I think you can see that they're really stepping out strong, saying that climate change is having an impact in many shades on our New York State society. Then they detail the adverse impacts, and this is where it really gets kind of personal and real, if you will. And so I'm not going to read these to you, but I'll let you look at them. And I think perhaps some of them might appeal to each of us. And I'll just share that personally, the extreme weather events really makes me think about 2006 and 2011 and the floods that we had here locally. I know some of my community members were impacted. I took part in helping people really try to recover from it, moving their goods out to mainly the curb to be taken away for garbage, removing floorboards, removing drywall from walls, and taking what were homes really down to just studs. And that still lives with me even this many years later. And so certainly it's important for us to try to do anything we can to minimize the change in our weather. So last but not least, this is a statement that I think really sets the business case, this last one. And it says, these impacts have a detrimental effect on some of New York's largest industries, and then they detail them. Later on in the legislation, in the business case, they say this: the severity of climate change impacts will be affected by the actions New York and other jurisdictions take to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which I think just kind of puts a bow on it. Yeah. So this is how they describe it in the legislation, and I just wanted to share with you the why. So before we get into talking more about the elements of the CLCPA, I do want to talk a little bit about New York State's electrical grid and where we are today. And I do this because the focus of the law, while it is sweeping and it goes across all segments of the economy, so agriculture, transportation, et cetera, it is across all of the segments. It focuses very specifically on electricity and the electrical grid. And that is due to a belief that other societies, other communities that have been successful in reducing their greenhouse gases have done exactly the same thing. They have started with their electrical grid. So if you look at the data that I've got here, this is from EIA, which is the Energy Information Administration. It's EIA.gov, and they have more information about energy than you can possibly digest in numerous visits to the website. But I pulled this one. This is 2018 data, and it's the electrical power sector consumption by source for New York State for 2018, and that is the most recent data that's out there. So if you'll see, if you look at coal, natural gas, and petroleum, those are the three fossil fuels. And of those, petroleum and coal are relatively minute, but natural gas is 34.6% of the power for our grid. So that's substantial. If you then go over to renewable and nuclear, those are the two that I really want to focus on, because renewable energy is what New York State is targeting to power the grid as we move forward. So they literally want to get to 100% renewable energy behind the grid. So renewable energy, in order of the way that the amount we use currently, is hydro, so harnessing the power of moving water, wind, biomass, which is burning either wood or wood pellets, something we do in my home, and then solar. So those are the four elements currently that make up renewable energy, and it's about a quarter of the source for the grid. Now, nuclear power is almost equivalent with natural gas in powering our New York State grid. We currently have 4 nuclear power plants operational in New York State. One of them, Indian Point, is scheduled to close next year, but they are a substantial amount of energy. Now, nuclear power is clean, but it's not green. So it doesn't emit greenhouse gases, but it does have other waste that may not be desirable. So nuclear power may be a branch or a bridge for us as we move to renewable energy. But currently, as they have defined renewable energy in the CLCPA, it is not part of the ultimate solution.
Nice.
So let's talk a little bit about the overall goals of the CLCPA, of this legislation. So up at the top in the red bar, you'll see greenhouse gas emissions. So this is CO2 and methane and other gases that are detrimental to the environment because they cause global warming and ultimately climate change. And so you can see that they're looking to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions across all market segments. So this isn't just the electrical grid, this is across all market segments. In New York State, we're looking to reduce the greenhouse gases by 40%. And then ultimately in 2050, we're looking to reduce the greenhouse gases by 85%. And I think this is a really important point, that we're not looking to get to zero in New York State. We're looking to get to 85%, and we'll still have about 15% of the greenhouse gas emissions left. And the plan is that if you want to be an emitter, if you want to emit greenhouse gas emissions, there will actually be a licensing process that you have to go through so that they can control the amount. And you'll have to justify why you need to do it. And we will also be looking to offset that 15%. And offsetting gets into a lot of science, but at the most simple, if you think about it, you can sequester carbon in trees, in plants, it happens naturally, in trees, in plants, in the soil, etc. And so when you hear climate change people talking about plant trees, that's why, because they sequester carbon. So the next 3 goals are really around the electrical grid. So you can see that 100% renewables by 2040 that I mentioned before. There's an interim goal of 2030. And by the way, biomass is not currently listed as a renewable. It is a small amount of our electrical grid currently, but it does mean that it may mean changes for some of us, including me. So from a solar and offshore wind perspective, there are also goals. So just really quickly, this is distributed solar that they're talking about here. So they're talking about land-based panels or panels that are on top of a roof, close to the source of the use of the energy. And they're looking to get to 6,000 megawatts by 2025. We currently have about 2,000 megawatts. Offshore wind, and make a distinction here between land wind. Here in upstate New York, we tend to think about wind as being turbines that are in a field or up on a hillside, but this is offshore wind. And offshore wind is going to be very important downstate to be able to power the electrical grid for our neighbors in New York City. So they're looking to get to 9,000 megawatts of offshore wind by 2035. We are currently at about 1,800 megawatts. Now, whenever you work any kind of process improvement, you're always looking to lean that process, right? To make that process more efficient. And that's true here as well. So they have an efficiency goal of increasing efficiency by 185 TBTUs compared to a forecasted usage that they have for 2025. So we're starting from 0 on that one, right? That is efficiency we need to gain. And Eileen and others at CCE have programs that can help each of us as individuals to do that, to actually become more efficient. So last but not least, there's a goal around energy storage. So if we're going to have 100% renewable sources for our grid, we are going to have to be able to handle peaks and valleys because the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine, and the water doesn't always flow. So we are going to need to be able to store energy. They're looking to have 3,000 megawatts by 2030. And we currently only have 60 megawatts. So there's a lot of work to be done on energy storage. And when I sit in meetings, I hear people talk about a lot of different ways that we can do energy storage. I think the jury's still kind of out on what's going to be the best way to do that. But a lot of work to be done there, which is probably why the goal is out in 2030. Now, the last thing, and very, very important that I want to make sure that I talk about here, is climate justice. So there's going to be a lot of investment by New York State in achieving these goals. And in fact, Governor Cuomo announced toward the end of July a $2 billion package that was going to fund some of these types of projects. Under the CLCPA, there is a climate justice stipulation that delineates disadvantaged communities, and it gives a very short definition of disadvantaged communities, and then creates a body, a working group, that is going to further define what is a disadvantaged community and which communities in New York State are considered disadvantaged. Those communities will then see 35 to 40% of the funds that are expended under this legislation going to their communities. So really big investment around a really important topic, because as we know, climate change, like COVID, has a varying and disparate impact on different communities. All right, so when I first started getting involved in this, I kept asking, where's the plan? Who's got the plan? This is the answer to my question. So this legislation actually puts forth a body, an organization, a climate action council, if you will, that through the use of 7 advisory panels will put together a plan. And that plan will literally move us from heavy reliance on fossil fuels to a grid that is all renewables and the rest of the goals that you saw there. So the Climate Action Council is led by the head of the Department of Environmental Conservation and the head of NYSERDA, the New York State Environmental Research and Development Authority. Those 2 co-chairs then lead a team of 20 people. 10 of them are other government agency leads. The other 10 are experts, think climate experts, members of higher level education, business leaders, climate activists, etc. So 22 members in all. Those folks will be responsible for putting together the plan for how we implement all of this. And the advisory panels that are working for them will represent all the different market segments across the economy. So think transportation, land use and local government, housing and energy efficiency, et cetera. So those advisory panels will be responsible for, within their own piece of the pie, so think it's transportation, they will think about what are the mandates, incentives, and regulations that we could put in place in New York State to encourage that shift from where we are today to where we need to be in the future. Now, all the actions that they take will be informed by the Climate Justice Working Group and the Just Transition Working Group. And just real quickly, the Climate Justice Working Group is that group that's going to further define disadvantaged communities and then stipulate which communities meet those criteria. The Just Transition Working Group is the group that is going to think about what are the new jobs that are going to be created by this shift, what jobs might be negatively impacted, and how are we going to have a just transition for everybody who's impacted. So I like to put this in that group of organizations within a broader context of, and those people will all deliver a plan to the New York State leaders in 2023, and they all work for us, right? So I put the citizens on the top because they all work for us. And so if we have an opinion about this, wherever it is on the spectrum, it's our right to be able to express it. So at the bottom, I put just a very high level schedule here for the CAC. So they have convened the CAC, they have staffed the advisory panels. Those advisory panels, as of Monday, we now know who everybody is who's going to be on a panel, and they are going to go off and work those recommendations. They have to get them back to the Climate Action Council within, it looked like 6 or 7 months is what they've got to do that in. And the Climate Action Council will then prepare a draft scoping plan. They will issue that draft plan for all of us to review in 2022. There will be at least 3 public hearings on the plan downstate and at least 3 up here in upstate. And then they will deliver a final plan in 2023. And I do just want to point out that some of those goals on the last page were for deliverables in 2025. So they're on a pretty tight time frame to make this happen. So with that, what can you do? So if you are watching this either live stream or on recording, you've just done the first 2. You've participated, and hopefully I've been helpful in you learning more about the CLCPA. What you can do next is consider your own energy use, and then request a home energy audit. Eileen and her counterparts can help you to get a home energy audit set up where someone can come in and really assess how efficient your home is currently. Whether you rent or own a home, you can take part in that home energy audit. Next, I just say limit single-use containers. So if you haven't read about it, do some Googling around single-use containers. There's a lot of energy that we put into creating single-use containers. We then use them once, and we then put a lot of energy into getting rid of them through waste management or recycling programs. If you take a walk around your house and really just note how many of the products you have are single-use containers, it's a little overwhelming. The other things you can do are stay abreast of the CAC progress. I have put the link to their website in the next page. You can go to their meetings virtually currently, and you can view recordings. You can see their meeting materials. It's not hard to stay abreast of what they're doing if you're interested. And then wherever you are, again, on the spectrum, let your legislators know what you think. They work for you, they work for us, and it's fair to get a hold of them. They're usually very easy. If you Google them, you can see many of them have it all set up so that you can write them a note right there and then, or you can call them. So let them know what you think. So with that, I'll just say, here's the contact information for myself. I am a trained climate reality project volunteer leader, and I would be happy to lead a discussion with your group. So please contact me at my email address if you're interested. Also, if you're interested in joining our new climate reality chapter, I can help you with that as well. Eileen is available for those energy audits and information about state energy programs. And then we just put some resources. I did do a little blog on my litter experience, and that's at Sustainable Saratoga. Then you can reach the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act and actually read it for yourself, or go to the CAC website. So with that, I would just say, Eileen, thank you so much for letting me share this, and I hope it's helpful for people. I hope we get some feedback, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Diane. This was really super informative and a very approachable material, which we appreciate, so that we can more clearly understand what the process is and how New York State is really stepping up and being at the forefront of protecting us as much as we can against climate change, and in demonstrating to us that there are things we can do as individuals to help move that ball as well, and kind of hopefully again stem climate change as much as possible. And I'm so glad that New York State is being very aggressive and moving very quickly in all of this. Just to remind you, based on what Diane Stefani said, you know, making your home more energy efficient is an integral part of all of this. Roughly 20% of carbon emissions come from our homes. So we do want to reduce our carbon emissions as much as possible, and at the same time reduce our utility bills. So give me a shout for a home energy assessment. And if you rent but pay your own utilities or own your home in New York State, you pretty much qualify for this program. And there's tons of grant money out there, up to $10,000 towards getting home energy efficiency upgrades done on your home. So feel free to give me a shout on that. Reach out to Diane if you have any questions whatsoever about climate reality, and if you want to participate with her and help her educate our communities about what we can do and what's going to be moving forward with legislation and so forth. And Diane, do you have any final words?
Just thank you so much for your partnership, Eileen. I have appreciated working with you over the last several months, and being able to take part and to share this information was important for me. So thank you so much for providing me a platform.
You are very welcome, and we'll be in touch. Thanks everybody for joining us today. If you didn't get to catch the whole thing because we did have a technical glitch, this will be available via recording on our site indefinitely. So or on our YouTube channel, Smart Energy Choices YouTube channel as well. All right. Thanks so much, Diane. Have a great day. We'll see you all soon.